Many artists I meet, especially those who come to my classes, will say, why don't you have a tube of green on the palette? Why don't you give us a green? Well, as a landscape painter, I like to get a harmonious effect with my greens and with the sky. So instead of taking a tube of a new pigment, if most of my sky has been mixed with, say, ultramarine blue, and I've used some burnt sienna to create the greys for the clouds, then I quite like the predominant greens to have the same ultramarine blue base. So let's just take a bit of ultramarine to start with and see what sort of greens we can mix. First of all, I'm going to take a bright cadmium lemon. Now, cadmium lemon, very bright, very cool green, but as soon as you start to mix it into the blue, very quickly goes quite dark, especially if you can see even around there, that's quite a dark green. And it will mix right round to an almost, if I keep it to sort of 80 or 90% yellow, I can get a fairly bright green. A little bit acidic looking, but not bad. Now, it's all right, but it might be a little bit harsh, and I want to soften that green. Complementary to green is red. Two things you can do here. Take a little bit of red. I tend to prefer using magenta. If anyone's got a printer at home, you'll know that you have lemon, cyan, magenta and black. So magenta is usually the red that's in your printer. Add a tiny bit of red to those greens, tiny bit, could even be too much there. And as you mix it, can you see that green change? It goes much more like a grass, sort of lovely natural green. And again in here, I haven't quite got enough red there. This takes practice, and I suggest you practice just with a palette knife on your actual palette like this, not using lots of paint. Get a lot of confidence. Now look at those two greens. They are completely different and much softer. That's the effect, the neutralizing effect of putting a complementary red into your greens. Now, I've just left those greens that we've been mixing on one side of my palette because I want to show you another way. Obviously we mixed the green and then added red. This is why the palette is laid out the way it is. If I take ultramarine blue again, now instead of going to the lemon yellow, I'm going to hop one yellow further along to what for me is azo yellow deep. Very similar to cadmium yellow deep, it's just a different pigment. Much more of an orange colour. Much more red in this yellow, it's leaning towards red. So what's going to happen when we mix that with the green? Oh look, instantly we get a green very similar to this one, right through. A little bit more blue in the mix, not quite got enough blue there, I don't want too much. There we are. Not the same, but we're getting a much warmer, already neutralized green. Because we've used a warm blue and I've used a yellow that is warmer, it is more towards orange than the lemon yellow, and it's already given me a different range of greens. So why don't you just do that all the time? Well, sometimes you might not want to go quite that dark or quite that neutralized, so it's better to start with the lemon yellow and you control as an artist how much red you put into the mix. I hope you find this little exercise on greens is helpful.